Star Trek Voyager certainly didn't shy away from the strangeness of exploring unknown space. The crew of the ship experienced a lot of messed up stuff during their stay in the Delta Quadrant. They had to contend with malfunctioning tech, awkward alien encounters, and much more on their journey home to Earth. Fire up your nacelles for Warp 10 and get ready to hear about some of Starfleet's weirdest adventures. With all that being said, I am Tom Roberts-Finn for TrekCulture, and this is the 10 biggest WTF moments from Star Trek Voyager. Number 10. The Doctor's opera performance. Of course, we had to mention Tinker Tenor Dr. Spy, the episode where the Doctor added the ability to daydream to his program. This was one of Voyager's more comedic episodes and a goldmine for WTF moments. Among other things, the Doctor daydreamed about all the female senior officers fighting for his affection and imagined himself commanding the ship and bravely defeating the Borg. But the weirdest daydream came right at the start of the episode. Tinker Tenor Dr. Spy opened with the Doctor singing the Italian opera, and sorry if I butcher this, Aria La Donna Mobile, to the crew in the mess hall. As the song progressed, Tuvok started acting stranger and stranger, first bursting into tears before laughing uncontrollably and falling to the floor. Tuvok pushed Paris aside, and the Doctor told everyone to stand back, and to the medley of the opera sang that Tuvok was going through his ponfar and losing his mind at his sexual frustration. Still in song, the Doctor told Paris to load a hyperspray, which the Doctor was able to use to knock out the hormonal Vulcan with one shot to the behind. It was only after this sequence that we learned it was all a daydream. This scene was definitely one of the most memorable cold opens in Trek history. The Doctor's singing, combined with everyone else's ambivalent reaction to the whole situation, absolutely makes this one of the most jaw-dropping absurd moments to come out of Voyager. Number 9. The story of Seven's Borg family. Once, while 7 of 9 was still a Borg drone, her ship was damaged and crashed on a planet. The only survivors were 7 and 3 other drones, who all became separated from the collective, and started to remember things from their past lives. Eventually, they were all re-assimilated. 7 was reconnected to the Borg, but the 3 others had a malfunction that created their own separate mini-collective with each other and were able to escape the Borg. Unfortunately, they remained linked together. Years later, in the episode Survival Instinct, they found Voyager and sought out 7 of 9, in the hopes that she would hold the key to separating their minds and becoming full individuals. 7 agreed to help them by linking her own mind to their collective. However, when they linked, the 4 former drones remembered what happened on the planet 8 years ago. The others chose to leave the collective, and 7 re-assimilated them herself to prevent their escape. This temporarily ended their resistance and resulted in the link between the group. Given that 7 was assimilated as a child, whereas the others were adults when they became Borg, leaving the collective was harder for her. She would eventually go on to embrace her individuality, but it's devastating to know that she once denied the same to her former Borg family. Things became even worse after the link was severed. The Doctor found that they would only live for a month at most unless they were reconnected to the Borg. They all chose to live short lives as individuals over returning to another collective. Number 8. The Doctor's second life. In blink of an eye, Voyager got trapped in the atmosphere of a planet that experienced accelerated time. With every second in normal space, a whole day would pass on the planet. Voyager's presence started to cause tremors for the aliens living on the surface. Voyager was only stuck in their atmosphere for a few days, but generations went by on the planet. Religions were formed around the ship, and scientific advancements were made to protect their buildings from the tremors. The Doctor was the only one who could survive visiting the planet, so he was sent to gather information about the population and Voyager's role in the society. The plan was for him to stay for 3 days before returning to the ship, 3 seconds of normal time. But there was complications, and by the time they were able to return him, the Doctor had lived for 3 years on the planet. He held out hope for rescue for a while, always able to see Voyager in the sky, but his loneliness soon became unbearable. During his stay on the planet, the Doctor formed a strong relationship with a woman named Marisa, who he called his roommate. And we later learned that he even became the father to a child named Jason, who he likely adopted with Marisa. The Doctor learned a lot in these 3 years. He had a real family for the first time, before being abruptly taken from them with no warning. To be honest, it's really strange that this part of his life isn't brought up more often. Number 7. Mark's surprise appearance. Before the Doctor got his mobile emitter, he was only able to travel to parts of the ship with holographic projectors, mainly sickbay and the holodecks. In the episode Persistence of Vision, the crew tried installing holo emitters in other areas of the ship, but they ran into some problems. The Doctor got shrunk when they transferred his program out of sickbay. Janeway played a gothic holo novel program to deal with her stress, but afterwards she started witnessing elements from that program throughout the ship and the real world. It started with a cucumber sandwich and a fancy cup from the program appearing in sickbay, but Janeway Janeway soon started seeing characters and hearing voices as well. She became convinced that the new holographic systems were projecting holograms throughout the ship, but when she asked Neelix about the sandwiches in the cup, he explained that they were actually fried Merc cakes and a simple metal cup. It became clear that the others couldn't see what the captain was seeing. The most shocking moment was when Janeway heard the voice of her fiancé, Mark, who was mad at the captain for leaving him for a holographic lover. Until this point, we were made to believe that these were holograms, but Mark's appearance made it clear that something was actually wrong with Janeway's mind. The rest of the crew began experiencing similar visions, Tuvok of his life on Vulcan, and Paris of his judgmental father, for example. And they learned that a powerful telepathic alien species was causing the hallucinations to weaken the crew. The other hallucinations, particularly Kes's vision of Neelix at the end of the episode, were truly horrific as well. But Mark's appearance in Janeway's quarters was when we discovered that these visions were not merely holograms, and things really started to turn disturbing from there. Number 6. An unexpected assimilation. In Unimatrix Zero, the Voyager crew discovered a dreamlike virtual reality world of the same name where some Borg drones could live as individuals while they were regenerating in the real world. In hopes to weaken the Borg, Janeway concocted a plan to unleash a virus into the collective that would allow the Borg of Unimatrix Zero to remain free-thinking when they awoke from their regeneration. The virus was quickly developed and the captain, Tuvok, and Torres went on an away mission to spread it to a Borg tactical cube. Originally, the plan was to deliver the virus to the cube's central plexus to spread it to the rest of the collective. But the Borg cornered the away team and the mission ended in disaster. Janeway, Tuvok, and Torres were all assimilated. Fortunately, the crew had a plan B. The Doctor infected them all with the virus, which allowed them to stay conscious as individuals for a short time after being assimilated. Because of this, the team was able to spread the virus to the central plexus, but the implication that they were fully aware throughout the whole assimilation process was truly horrifying. It's good that nobody on the team had any eye implants installed, but B'Elanna's voice was the stuff of nightmares. Number 5. The history of Chrono Works Industries. Voyager was attacked by a 29th century Starfleet timeship in the episode Future's End, because its captain, Braxton, believed that Voyager would be responsible for a huge explosion in the future that would destroy Earth and the entire solar system. In the fight, the two were pulled into a space-time anomaly to Earth in the 20th century, but Braxton and his timeship ended up decades earlier, in 1967. Braxton's ship crashed and he beamed away to safety, but before he could find the timeship, a man named Henry Starling discovered it in the mountains and used it to jumpstart humanity's microcomputer revolution, becoming massively wealthy by reverse engineering 29th century technology through his company, Chrono Works Industries. It's likely that Starling's influence on early computer tech was undone at the end of the episode, along with Captain Braxton's experiences living on Earth for 30 years, but the Doctor still had his mobile emitter that he got from Starling, suggesting that some of the events of the altered timeline still took place. Number 4. The Doctor's problematic assistant. In the Voyager episode Nothing Human, Lieutenant Torres became fused with an alien life form resembling a facehugger, which paralyzed her and slowly sucked out her body's energy to keep itself alive. Unable to detach the alien from B'Elanna, the Doctor decided to create a holographic consultant to assist with his research. He chose a notable Cardassian doctor, Krell Mosset, as the basis for the program. The two holograms started to make progress learning about the alien. We got to know Mosset and were made to empathize with him when B'Elanna made bigoted comments against Cardassians. But eventually a Bajoran engineer revealed that Dr. Mosset was actually an infamous mass murderer from the Cardassian occupation of Bajor, who conducted twisted experiments on Bajoran people that killed hundreds. The crew was forced to deal with the moral implications of benefiting from the research that took the lives of so many Bajorans. B'Elanna flat out refused to be treated by him when she learned the truth, but the Doctor went against her wishes, detaching the alien with the help of the Mosset hologram. At first, after his past was revealed, the hologram argued that those evil experiments were not in the Starfleet database, and therefore not part of his program. But when he began defending the atrocities he committed during the occupation, the Doctor was forced to delete him. Number 3. The entirety of Elogium. The most jaw-droppingly absurd episode of Voyager is probably Elogium. It all started when Voyager got stuck in a swarm of space-dwelling alien life forms. Hilariously, the life forms mistook the ship's warp signature for the pheromones of a potential mate. The aliens became sexually attracted to Voyager and attached themselves to the ship's hull. Later, the ship was knocked by a larger life form, thought to be a different sex from the others. The crew tried to fight back by ramming into it, but when they were unsuccessful, Chakotay suggested trying to behave in a submissive way, to show the large alien that they were not a sexual rival. The ship then flipped over and vented plasma to simulate the pheromones of the smaller aliens instead. It should come as no surprise that the episode's plot was approved by Brannon Braga, mainly because he laughed at the idea of having Tuvok say, "It appears we have lost our sex appeal, Captain." While all this was going on, the energy from the alien swarm caused Kes to go through her elogium, a kind of puberty, where the body became ready to have a child. The elogium only comes once in her species' life, so Neelix and Kes were forced to decide whether or not to have a kid. Her condition also caused her to eat dirt, insects, and massive amounts of mashed potatoes, formed a birthing growth on her back for her offspring to grow in, and gave her scary yellow eyes and intense paranoia. And let's not forget that Kes wasn't even 2 years old in this episode. Yes, I know, she's a different species, blah blah blah, it's weird. Number 2. The murder of Tuvix. No moment in Trek history has generated as much controversy as Janeway's brutal murder of Tuvix, the unholy combination of Tuvok and Neelix. The two were combined in a transporter accident, including their clothing, which created an entirely new entity, one which seemingly combined the best elements of both of them. Tuvix basically got Tuvok's discipline and intelligence mixed with Neelix's social skills and cooking skills. He quickly became close with the crew, but Janeway missed her friends, or probably just Tuvok to be honest. She ordered the doctor to give Tuvix medication that would allow him to be separated back into two people, but he refused to do so, citing his doctor's oath to do no harm. Many members of the crew and the audience alike wished that Tuvix was never taken from us. To many, he was more likable than either Neelix or Tuvok, and killing him off so quickly was really a missed story opportunity. Number 1. The first Warp 10 flight. Words simply cannot describe the pain of having to watch Threshold. This episode took a cool concept, the idea of Warp 10, and took it in a direction that nobody could have predicted. Voyager conducted some experiments on a shuttlecraft to achieve Warp 10, the theoretical limit to the warp speed scale, which would allow the ship to occupy every point in space simultaneously. Of all things that could have happened, the writers decided that going at infinite velocity would have the unintended side effect of accelerating the traveler's evolution. Paris, the first to travel in a Warp 10 ship, started losing his mind and transforming into a lizard upon returning. Paris then kidnapped Captain Janeway aboard the Warp 10 shuttle and subsequently mutated her into a lizard as well. The shuttle landed and the two of them mated and made creepy human lizard babies, who Voyager left behind in the Delta Quadrant after finding their crewmates and changing their bodies back, though a similar creature was seen in lower decks, so it's possible their children were eventually found, or maybe somebody else accidentally went too fast and met the same fate. Threshold managed to misrepresent evolution, warp physics, and basic logic all at once, giving us an episode that leaves us screaming "what the f*** from start to finish. And that was the 10 biggest WTF moments from Star Trek Voyager. If you can think of anything that we may have missed, or you just want to tell me that my voice is boring or weird, then let us know down in the comments. Remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. You can find us on Twitter at TrekCulture and on Instagram at TrekCultureYT. If you want to see what I'm up to, which includes a fantasy book series which I've just started self-publishing, then come find me on Twitter and various other socials with @TomCFinn. Thanks for watching, and until next time, bye bye.